Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Yunika Maulida. My student number 026. In here, I will explain about the function of oral language. Before I explain about the function of oral language, I will explain about definition of oral language first. What is oral language? Oral language encompasses two components, expressive language and receptive language. Expressive language, or speaking, is the use of words and nonverbal processes to share meaning with others. Expressive language is a person's ability to express this something based on what he thinks or describes through expressions, gestures, and words. Nonverbal processes in here mean that is communicating with others without using words but actions. For example, using hand gestures to point and ask for something, make eye contact, touch, voice intonations, micro expressions, and body language. Then, receptive language or listening is the process of understanding what has been expressed. Listening can occur even when no sounds are heard, that is by taking note of pitch, tone, stress, and use of gesture to understand a speaker's meaning. So, we don't just understand oral language that is heard or read, but also understand the meaning of the speaker's expression and tone of voice. Oral language is the foundation for the development of literacy skills and is considered to be a strong indicator of letter reading, writing, and overall academic achievement. Having a solid foundation in oral language will help to be a successful reading and strong communicator and build confidence and an overall sense of well-being. Next, Halliday's functions of oral language. There are 7 functions of oral language according to Halliday's. The first function is instrumental. Instrumental is language as a means of getting things and satisfying material needs, like eating, drinking, and so on. We can use I want to express a desire or need. Then this sort of language help us to identify things, seek and provide information, request assistance. Classroom experience or genres, problem solving, catering materials, role playing. The second function is personal. Personal is expressing individuality, awareness of self, and pride. This sort of language helps us to elaborate and give detailed accounts of experience, express and respond to ideas and opinions, express agreement and disagreement, seek, give, and deny permission to do something, express approval or disapproval for a service provided. Classroom experience or genres, making feelings, public interacting with others, interest thoughts. And then the third function is interactional. Getting along with others, establishing relative status, also me against you, establishing separateness. We can use me and you, using language to interact and plan, develop or maintain a play or group activity. This sort of language help us to greet or welcome people, meet or introduce people, take leave of somebody, attract attention, congratulate, sustain conversations with familiar and unfamiliar people, meet social obligations when working in groups, use language to settle disputes, use appropriate tone and manner with peers, explore challenging ideas, interrupt appropriately, negotiate. Classroom experience or genres, structured play, dialogues and discussions, talking in groups, substantive conversations, role plays, and scenarios. Next. Okay, next. The fourth function is regulatory, controlling the behavior and feelings of others. Do as I tell you. This sort of language helps us to give information or correct factual information, persuade others, give specific logical instruction in a variety of contexts for different audience. Classroom experience or genres, making rules in games, giving instructions, teaching, contrasting persuasive text. Then the fifth function is representational, communicating informations, descriptions, expressing propositions. I have got something to tell you. This sort of language helps us to tell about the real world, express propositions, report about things using description or narrative, convey message. And then classroom experience or genres, oral reports, class meetings, debates, procedures, radio scripts. Next, the sixth functions is heuristic, seeking and testing knowledge. Tell me why. This sort of language helps us to use a range of questions, respond to questions appropriately, select the most effective type of questions to get the required information, express and validate intellectual ideas, hypotheses, and experiments. Classroom experience or genre, questions and answer routines, inquiry and research, discussions, interview, exploratory talk, extending students' repertoire of question types, oral histories, investigating. And the last function is imaginative, creating new worlds, making up stories and poems. Let's pretend. This sort of language helps us to perform, recite, and puppetry. Classroom experience or genres, stories and dramatizations, rhythms, poems and riddles, nonsense and wordplay, storytelling, performance, recitations, drama, skits, puppetry, readers' theater. Next, it is important when talking the functions of language to give consideration to the range of different social contexts of language, informal or formal, familiar or unfamiliar. Then, the range of cultural contexts for language, local, community, institutional. And the last, the possible participants in a conversations, people who are know or unknown, students, peers, adults. Next, okay, there is a difference between talk as a process and talk as a performance. Talk as a process. Collaborative problem solving, joint text constructions, class discussions, individual writing conference, brainstorming and listening, giving directions and instructions, contrasting activities, board games, writers or readers cycle, talk as performance, morning news, sports report, debating, telling jokes and anecdotes, dramatic presentations, retelling, storytelling, delivering oral message, thanking a quiet speaker. Talk as a performance refers to more formal activities when learners speak to an audience. Talk as process refers to the use of talk of learning, cooperating with each other, and forming social relationship. Next, students need to develop the linguistic resources to engage with a variety of situations or registers. Register refers to the different formal, informal, social, and educational situations that students will encounter. In any situation, the purpose of the interaction has a major influence on the language used. Competent speakers and listeners vary their choice of language according to first, the role that spoken language is playing in the interaction. For example, the language used to explain and play a board game is different from the language used to tell a funny story. Second, the topic or activity being talked about. The third, the roles and relationship between the speakers. And the last, the relationship between the speaker and the audience. For example, between teacher and student, like that. Next, the difference in register can be considered in terms of the three register components: field, tenor, and mode. Field Field refers to who or what is being talked about. At school, students are expected to participate in spoken language activities centered on various curriculum topics, on social relationship, and on learning itself. Topics vary from the familiar to the more abstract. This progression requires access to a specialist vocabulary, to ways of thinking such as causation and constructive relationships, clarifying or checking understanding, and to the kind of language used to discuss language and literacy, which is referred to as meta-language. So, basically, the file is the thing or topic that is being discussed at the time. Next, the second, tenor. Tenor is the relationship between the speaker and listener. uh, who or what kind of person produce this text. For whom, for example, between teacher and student. At school, students have to learn to be a member of a large group and to work collaboratively with others. Acquiring the skills mean learning the language of negotiations. And the last is mood. Mode is the type of text being produced, how language being used, like that. At school, students engage in spoken language activities that range from familiar embed activities, for example, building with construction blocks or discussing a science experiments, to texts that require reflective language that emphasizes aspect of audience purpose, and from example formal debates, oral reports. Okay, that's all from me. I'm sorry there are mistake or something wrong. Thank you for watching and listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.